this is my review of Solar Opposites. Okay, so in this episode, Terry and Korvo, with the help of the replicants, steal a bear from the local zoo, and it has some tragic consequences. That's not what the episode's about, though. So, this episode is actually not about what the title says in the episode, but it's actually about the people of the wall, and is one of my favorite episodes in the first season. So, the episode starts off with this farmer, with this new farmer who's been working with his mouse Molly to distribute milk among the levels, and through him we've seen that people have not only found a sense of normalcy, but also that the Duke kind of has a bit of a problem with the rebellion on his hands, and that the rebellion is in fact brewing. So it does eventually cut to Tim, who is in fact who's in fact being held in one of the cells in the lower levels, and he's on the bottom level. It's established that it's on the bottom level. Eventually, he gets a cellmate who through contrived series of events, eventually finds out that Tim is actually the leader of the quote-unquote rebellion. He didn't plan to start a rebellion, but it happened. So, and Tim points out that the last time he led, people got hurt, and he doesn't really want to be in that position again. But his cellmate points out that he can smuggle anything he wants out of their cell, and points out to at least start writing his story down, so that he can actually show the people that, yes, he does have his ideals and does believe in the wall. So, yeah, he points out that the wall, so yeah, in his letters, Tim points out that even though they were shrunk down and put in the wall, it was the Duke that made it a prison, and points out that he hopes to change that one day. So, this goes on, in the several days as he's writing all of these different letters, he's actually training to get stronger so that they can actually escape on their own without having to involve anybody else. And this work goes terribly because Tim's cellmate immediately gets pinned by one of the guards. But then a miracle happens, and Sherry is revealed to somehow be alive after falling down the boo-boo hole, and is now completely fine. So she shows up, breaks Tim out of prison, and they escape into something that is apparently below the lowest level. Apparently, and oddly enough, it's a replica set from Seinfeld, because for whatever reason, for reasons that are sort of explained but not really, Yumulak for whatever reason owns a replica of the Seinfeld set from the Seinfeld sitcom, and he built the rest of the wall on top of it. It's never explained how he actually got it, but at least not directly, because it's mostly just theories by the people of the wall who are trying to figure out why this thing is here. But they posit that it was most likely he got an allowance, he bought it, then he got bored with it and started building the wall and started putting people in it. So, there you go. But in any case, now the rebellion has gotten its leader back, much to the annoyance of the Duke, who finds out about this through his lackeys and puts out an ABB to get Tim captured. Meanwhile, Tim is trying to figure out what exactly he wants to do. He points out that he's a little bit reluctant to actually lead people in a rebellion against the Duke, because last time he tried that, people got hurt, and he doesn't want that to happen again. And sure enough, he's also confused as to why Sherry is somehow alive, and even confronts her about it. She points out that all of the spikes on the wall, the spikes that are supposed to make it incredibly painful and actually kill somebody, actually saved her life, ironically enough. Because instead of getting impaled on the spikes like the Duke intended, she actually bounced off each of the spikes as she went down, which hurt like hell, but she survived the fall. And sure enough, Tim points out that they're actually matching, because while in the prison, he was actually whipped quite a bit, and they start admiring each other's scars, at which point they proceed to make love. So there you go. But in any case, the next morning they go to meet with the rebellion, and point out that they are trying to figure out a way to actually beat the rebellion. But as Tim points out, and as they just explained, he is on the fence and doesn't want to lead again because he's afraid of people getting hurt again. And sure enough, Sherry calls him out on it. However, they decide to put their bickering aside because it's a holiday today, at least inside the wall. So they started celebrating Jesse's birthday as a holiday, at least as far as they can tell from the inside the wall. So, and they started doing that as a holiday. Tim, along with Sherry and Tim's old cellmate, actually do go to the church to admire what's going on, and sure enough, go there to actually partake in the festivities. However, while they're there, the Duke shows up to make a speech, and he points out that what he does because he wants to be as generous as Jesse is, and it's in fact reveals that he's a very big sponsor of the church, and points out that he wants to actually do good for the good of the wall, and whenever he does something, he thinks, what would Jesse do? However, the speech gets interrupted when one of the Duke's lackeys actually sees that Tim is in the audience and opens fire on him. And Tim's cellmate is accidentally killed in the crossfire, and Tim and Sherry are able to escape. And the Duke is immediately escorted out by his guards, yelling at his lackey that he shouldn't have done that because he had him in the palm of his hand. So Tim cradles his now dying cellmate and exchange some last words. And Tim finally has the motivation he needs to actually act. And after rescuing the Archbishop of the church, I guess would be her title. After rescuing the Archbishop of the church and having her cooperate, after pointing out that they don't need to fight, pointing out that they can do so without sacrificing their ideals, finally decides to lead a rebellion against the Duke. So what he does is he realizes there's a lot of people on the lower levels who actually don't have to work double shifts because the Duke is an asshole. So what he does is he has everybody rebel against him by not doing their jobs and pointing out that the Duke relies as much on them as they rely on him. Basically they cut off the Duke's power supply, water supply, food supply, everything, and hoping to starve him out. So with that, they had the numbers they need to actually storm the upper levels. So Tim remarks when they get there that he no longer has any fear of that they no longer have any fear of him, and the Duke no longer has any control, and they all want him out. And sure enough, set their underpants on fire because reasons, and use that to actually burn the door down and enter the door and go up to the Duke's palace at the upper levels. But however, the Duke actually was planning for a rebellion one day, and actually did rig up a giant contraption to flood the lower levels. And sure enough, he activates that contraption now, killing everyone, including one of the farmers, including the farmer's mouse, Molly, which is one of the more tragic things that happened in this episode. So with that, after realizing that the Duke would rather watch everybody drown than actually compromise and save and help everybody out, they finally realize that the Duke needs to die in order to actually make the wall better. And sure enough, continue to storm his palace, fight a massive battle to get to his throne room. Sure enough, they eventually do meet to eventually break through the Duke's defenses and actually make it to the Duke's chambers. However, Tim is the only one who gets inside and goes to explore the Duke's chambers to try and find him. When he finally gets to the Duke's chambers, he finds out that there's actually a hole behind the Duke's throne, and the Duke was able to escape through that. So it's eventually revealed that the Duke was able to actually smuggle things in through the wall, and had told nobody about the fact that there was an opening to the outside that he could come and go through as he pleased. So, and naturally, Tim and later Sherry are very upset about that because they realize that the Duke has been lying to everybody the whole time, and realize we could have escaped the whole time too. And sure enough, Sherry asks Tim to actually tell everybody about the hole, and Tim, in a surprising twist, doesn't. He explains that he tells everybody a lie that the Duke is dead, and then stabs Sherry fatally for good measure, pointing out to her as she lay dying that all he really cares about is the wall, and making the wall better than it wasn't before they got shrunk. So, as they point out, the Duke is, as she points out, he doesn't really believe in escaping. He never wanted to escape. He just wants the wall to be great. That's it. He wants the wall to be great. He wants the wall to be the best it can be, and he will silence anybody who gets in his way. So Tim is kind of not the most likable person anymore. In an ironic twist, he winds up being worse than the Duke. Because while he wants to make everything better, he's also willing to basically lie and manipulate and make the wall better by making it seem like that he is just a generous person who wants everybody in the walls to survive. When in actuality, he's hiding the fact that they can actually escape now. And sure enough, thanks Sherry for helping him take over the wall before kicking her dying body out of the hole and covering up the fact that there was a murder there. So, and sure enough, when he pardons all the Duke's men and declares that it's now a new holiday and declares that Sherry Day because she died in battle, as he puts it. So, yeah, this episode was one of the more plot-heavy of the episodes because there's a lot of things going on, and it's one of the more dynamic episodes, I guess would be the word. It's one of the more extreme episodes. It's one of those episodes that's like, yeah, Solar Opposites is usually about funny jokes and stupid humor alongside meaningful meaningful life lessons. With The Wall, with this episode, no, all of that's out the window. It's a mostly serious situation. It's a mostly serious episode, and I really appreciate it for that. It's one of those situations where a C plot slowly takes over and then eventually gets its own episode. So it's great. But in any case, yeah, that's my review of Solar Opposites. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, if you want to help support my show, then be sure to check out my Patreon. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks and my way saying thanks, so be sure to check those out in the description below as well. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!